My wife said, "If you loved me, you'd let me have this friendship." I loved myself more. When I walked away with the house, the car, and my dignity, she realized friendship was all she had left. The rain hammered against our smart home's windows like nature's own percussion section, and I sat in my home office watching security feeds from cameras I'd installed to protect us from strangers. Turns out, the real threat was already inside. Malcolm Farrow, that's me. 38 years old, ex-military turned cybersecurity consultant in this tech-obsessed Pacific Northwest paradise, where everyone thinks they're changing the world with another app. I specialized in keeping people's digital lives secure, which made the irony of my current situation particularly bitter. Diana had just delivered her ultimatum from the kitchen doorway, framed by the soft glow of our expensive smart lighting system. She looked beautiful, as always, auburn hair perfectly styled even at 8 in the evening, wearing that blue dress that used to make my pulse quicken. Now it just made me suspicious about who she'd dressed up for. "It's not an ultimatum, Malcolm," she continued, reading my expression with the skill of someone who'd been married to me for 15 years. "It's just that Trevor and I have this connection, this intellectual bond that I've never experienced before. You should be happy for me. Trevor Holt, my business partner, my supposed best friend for the past decade. The man who'd stood beside me when we launched our cybersecurity firm, who'd been the best man at our wedding, who'd eaten Sunday dinners at our table and played video games with our kids. Happy for you," I repeated, letting the words hang in the air like smoke from a house fire. "Happy that my wife is having an intellectual connection with another man. Happy that she's asking permission to pursue this friendship while wearing a dress she hasn't worn for me in 6 months." Diana's jaw tightened. "You're being paranoid and possessive. This is exactly why I need someone who understands me on a deeper level." I turned back to my computer screen where lines of code scrolled past like digital rain. "Tell me about this deeper level, Diana. Does it involve late-night texts, secret coffee meetings, or maybe those intellectual discussions you two have been having in his Tesla after your yoga classes?" Her silence lasted exactly 4 seconds. I counted. In cybersecurity, timing reveals everything. "How did you—" she started, then caught herself. "You've been spying on me?" "I've been protecting our family's digital footprint. Your phone syncs to our home network, remember? The same network I designed to be impenetrable from outside threats. Internal threats, however, broadcast themselves pretty clearly." I pulled up a folder on my desktop labeled Network Activity Logs and turned the monitor toward her. Diana's face went pale as she recognized her own message history with Trevor, timestamps and all. "Malcolm, this isn't what it looks like." "Really? Because what it looks like is my wife and my business partner having conversations about how boring I am, how you deserve better, and how Trevor understands your needs in ways I apparently never could." I scrolled through the messages, reading her own words back to her. Quote, "Malcolm is so focused on his security systems, he doesn't see what's right in front of him. You make me feel alive again, Trev." Diana stepped into the room, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. "Those are just words, Malcolm. Friendship words. I'm allowed to have friends who appreciate me." Friendship. I tasted the word like spoiled milk. "Is that what you call it when you send him photos of yourself in that red lingerie I bought you for our anniversary? The lingerie you told me you'd lost?" Her composure cracked like thin ice. "You had no right to read my private messages. I had every right to monitor traffic on my own network, and I had every obligation to investigate when that traffic included my wife sending intimate photos to my business partner while I was working 16-hour days to keep our company afloat." I stood up, my 6-foot frame casting a shadow across the desk. Military posture never really leaves you, and right now I needed every inch of authority I could project. "So here's what's going to happen, Diana. You're going to end this friendship. You're going to block Trevor's number, and you're going to decide whether you want to be married to me or whether you want to be single and free to pursue all the intellectual connections your heart desires." Diana's eyes flashed with something between anger and desperation. You can't give me ultimatums, Malcolm. I won't be controlled. I'm not controlling you. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. She crossed her arms, and I recognized the stance. It was her negotiation posture from her job as HR director at a tech startup. She used it when she was about to make demands. If you loved me, she said slowly, you'd let me have this friendship. You'd trust me to maintain appropriate boundaries while exploring a connection that feeds my soul in ways our marriage hasn't in years. There it was. The request framed as emotional necessity, just like she'd learned in whatever self-help book or therapy session had convinced her that marriages should accommodate outside romantic interests. And if you loved me, I replied, you wouldn't be asking. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Outside, the rain continued its assault on our windows, and I could hear our 15-year-old daughter Sophie moving around upstairs, probably listening to every word through the heating vents. Diana took a deep breath, and I saw her shift into what I'd come to recognize as her manipulation mode. The soft voice, the reasonable tone, the careful word choices designed to make me feel like the unreasonable one. Malcolm, honey, I need you to understand something. This friendship with Trevor isn't about replacing you or our marriage. It's about growth, about becoming the best version of myself. Modern relationships require flexibility and trust. If we're going to make it another 15 years, we need to evolve. Evolve. I turned the word over in my mind like a puzzle piece that didn't fit. Is that what we're calling infidelity now? It's not infidelity if there's no physical component. I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Diana, you sent him photos of yourself in lingerie. You meet him secretly. You text him things you don't say to me. What exactly would constitute infidelity in your evolved definition? She didn't answer immediately, which told me everything I needed to know. Diana was a smart woman, smart enough to know she was caught, and smart enough to know that her best strategy now was to make me feel guilty for catching her. The fact that you're monitoring my communications tells me everything about the state of our marriage, she finally said. You don't trust me. You don't respect my autonomy. And you're so focused on controlling me that you can't see how unhappy I've been. How unhappy you've been. I repeated her words, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Diana, I've worked 80-hour weeks for the past 3 years building our security firm. I've provided for this family, maintained this house, coached Evan's baseball team, and helped Sophie with her college prep. When exactly was I supposed to notice your unhappiness between handling all the responsibilities you've been too busy to share? That's exactly the problem, Malcolm. You think providing and maintaining and coaching is the same as connecting. When was the last time we talked about my dreams, my goals, my inner life? When was the last time you mentioned having dreams that didn't involve our family? Diana's face flushed. See? This is why I need Trevor. He listens to me. He sees me as more than just a wife and mother. He values my thoughts and opinions. He values the photos you send him. That was one time, and it wasn't. It was 17 times, Diana. 17 separate photo messages over the past 2 months. I have timestamps. The room fell silent, except for the rain and the distant sound of our 12-year-old son, Evan, playing video games in his room. Normal family sounds in a house where nothing was normal anymore. Diana sat down in the chair across from my desk, and for a moment she looked like the woman I'd married, vulnerable, uncertain, human. But then she straightened her shoulders, and I saw the steel underneath. I want to continue my friendship with Trevor, she said quietly. I'm not asking for your permission anymore, Malcolm. I'm telling you what I need. If you can't accept that, then maybe we need to discuss other arrangements. Other arrangements. Divorce, she meant, but she wouldn't say the word. Diana always preferred euphemisms when reality got too sharp. I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and realized I was seeing a stranger. The woman I'd married would never have betrayed our family's trust. The woman I'd married would never have thrown our 15-year partnership away for whatever she thought she was getting from Trevor. But this woman, sitting in my office wearing a dress she'd bought to impress another man, demanding the right to continue her affair while keeping the security and comfort of our marriage, this woman I didn't know at all. "Other arrangements," I said finally. "Yes, Diana. I think we do need to discuss other arrangements." She smiled, thinking she'd won. "Good. I'm glad you're being reasonable about this." "Oh, I'm being very reasonable. I'm going to give you exactly what you're asking for." Something in my tone made her smile fade. "What do you mean?" "You want your friendship with Trevor? You can have it. All of it. Just your friendship and nothing else." I turned back to my computer and opened a new browser window. "I'm going to call Constance Whitmore in the morning. Remember her? She was my father's attorney. Handled his estate when he passed. She specializes in asset protection now." Diana's face went white. "Malcolm, you're overreacting." "Am I? You just told me you're going to continue your affair whether I like it or not. You've made it clear that our marriage is secondary to your friendship, so I'm going to make sure that when you choose Trevor over our family, you get exactly what you're choosing. Him and nothing else. It's not an affair, it's a friendship. Then you'll be very happy with just the friendship." I pulled up Constance's law firm website and bookmarked it. "Because that's all you're going to have left." Diana stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "You can't threaten me, Malcolm." "I'm not threatening you. I'm informing you. There's a difference, just like there's a difference between friendship and infidelity, even if you can't see it anymore." She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw her calculating, weighing her options, considering her next move. Diana had always been strategic, but she'd never had to be strategic against me before. "We'll see about that," she said finally, and walked out of the room. I listened to her heels click up the stairs, heard our bedroom door close with just a little too much force, and turned back to my computer. The security feeds showed our house from every angle: front door, backyard, driveway, even the street, all secure from outside threats. But inside threats, I was learning, were a different kind of problem entirely. I opened a new document and began typing. Documentation. Evidence of marital misconduct. Then I started organizing the message logs, the photos, the location data, and the timeline of Diana's relationship with Trevor. If my wife wanted to choose friendship over marriage, I was going to make sure she understood the full cost of that choice. The next morning arrived gray and drizzling, typical Pacific Northwest weather that matched my mood perfectly. Diana had already left for work by the time I came downstairs, but she'd made coffee, a peace offering, or maybe just habit. Either way, I poured it down the sink and made my own. Sophie sat at the kitchen island, picking at a bowl of cereal while scrolling through her phone. At 15, she had her mother's auburn hair and my suspicious nature, which meant she'd inherited the worst possible combination for keeping family secrets. "Mom left early," she said, without looking up from her screen. "I noticed. She was crying in the bathroom at like 5 in the morning. I paused in the middle of grinding coffee beans. "How do you know that?" Sophie finally looked at me, and I saw too much understanding in her green eyes. "The walls aren't that thick, Dad, and you guys weren't exactly whispering last night." Great. Our family drama was now entertainment for our teenage daughter. I finished grinding the beans and tried to figure out what to say to a 15-year-old about her mother's affair. "Your mom and I are working through some issues," I said finally. "Issues like her texting Trevor Holt at midnight?" The coffee scoop slipped from my hand and clattered onto the counter. "How do you—" "Dad, I'm not stupid. She's been acting weird for months. New clothes, new perfume, always on her phone. And Trevor's been coming around the office more, hasn't he? I heard you talking to Uncle Nate about it." Uncle Nate wasn't actually related to us, but he'd been my friend since our army days, and Sophie had called him Uncle since she could talk. If I'd been discussing Diana's behavior with Nate, then I'd been more obvious about my suspicions than I'd thought. What exactly did you hear? Sophie set down her spoon and looked at me with the kind of direct stare that reminded me she was my daughter. I heard you tell Uncle Nate that Mom was acting like a teenager with a crush. I heard you say Trevor was spending too much time at our house. And I heard you say you were going to figure out what was going on. I leaned against the counter, suddenly feeling every one of my 38 years. Sophie, your mother's choices are between her and me. You don't need to worry about... Dad. Sophie's voice cut through my deflection like a blade. She's cheating on you, isn't she? The question hung in the air between us like a challenge. I could lie, try to protect her from the ugly reality of adult relationships. Or I could treat her like the intelligent young woman she was becoming and give her the respect of honesty. Yes, I said quietly. She is. Sophie nodded, like she'd been expecting confirmation. What are you going to do about it? I'm going to protect our family. Does that include getting rid of her? The cold calculation in my daughter's voice startled me. Sophie, because if it does, I'm on your side. Evan is too, even if he doesn't understand what's happening yet. I stared at my 15-year-old daughter, who was calmly discussing the dissolution of her parents' marriage like she was planning a school project. When had she become so pragmatic about betrayal? How long have you known? I asked. For sure? Since last month when I saw her delete texts before coming into the house. But I suspected something was wrong since Christmas. She stopped caring about family stuff, stopped asking about my grades or my friends, started working out more, buying new clothes, doing her hair differently. Sophie picked up her cereal bowl and rinsed it in the sink. She stopped being our mom and started being someone else. The accuracy of Sophie's observations hit me like a physical blow. My daughter had been watching her mother transform into a stranger, just like I had, but she'd been doing it without any of the context that might have made it understandable. I'm sorry you had to figure this out on your own, I said. I'm not sorry. I'm angry. Sophie turned to face me, and I saw steel in her expression that reminded me of my own father. She's destroying our family for what? Some guy with a fancy car and a weak chin? Despite everything, I almost smiled. Weak chin? Trevor looks like someone drew a face on a thumb, Dad. If Mom's going to wreck our lives, she could at least do it for someone attractive. Evan wandered into the kitchen then, 12 years old, and still young enough to be oblivious to the undercurrents of adult drama. He grabbed a granola bar from the pantry and kissed my cheek, a gesture that reminded me exactly what I was fighting for. Where's Mom? He asked. Work, Sophie and I said simultaneously. She's been leaving early a lot lately, Evan observed, then shrugged and headed toward the front door. I'm riding with Jake's mom today. See you tonight. After he left, Sophie and I stood in the kitchen listening to the rain against the windows. What's your plan? She asked. My plan? Dad, you're a cybersecurity expert and an ex-military strategist. You don't just react to threats, you plan responses. So, what's your plan for dealing with Mom? I looked at my daughter and realized she was right. I had been planning, even if I hadn't admitted it to myself yet. The evidence gathering, the asset research, the call to Constance, these weren't random reactions. They were the first steps in a campaign. I'm going to give your mother exactly what she's asking for, I said. Which is? Her friendship with Trevor. Just her friendship, and nothing else. Sophie smiled, and it was a sharp expression that reminded me she was definitely my daughter. Good. She made her choice. Now she gets to live with it. After Sophie left for school, I sat in my office and opened the file I'd started the night before. Documentation, evidence, timeline, the foundation of any successful operation, whether military or legal. Diana's affair with Trevor had been escalating for months, but the digital trail went back even further. I pulled up our family's shared cloud storage and began working backward through photos, calendar entries, and location data. There, a photo from our company Christmas party 3 months ago. Diana and Trevor standing just a little too close, her hand on his arm, both of them laughing at something that had excluded everyone else in the frame. I'd been taking the photo, which meant I'd been looking right at the beginning of their affair and hadn't seen it. More photos. Diana at Trevor's house, for what she'd told me, was a work meeting, but the timestamp showed it was a Saturday. Trevor at our house when I was out of town, supposedly fixing our Wi-Fi but staying for 4 hours. Diana's location data showing her at a hotel downtown during her lunch break, the same hotel where Trevor had been according to his social media check-ins. Every piece of evidence told the same story. My wife and my business partner had been conducting an affair right under my nose for months, and they'd been careless enough to leave a digital trail that any competent investigator could follow. I printed everything and organized it in chronological order. Then I called Constance Whitmore. "Farrow residence, this is unexpected," Constance said when she answered. Her voice carried the same dry authority I remembered from my father's funeral 5 years ago. "I assume this isn't a social call." "It's not. I need legal advice about asset protection in a divorce scenario." "Ah. I wondered when you'd call about that." "You wondered?" "Malcolm, I've been practicing family law for 25 years. When a successful man calls me about asset protection, it's usually because his wife is having an affair. The only question is whether he knows it yet." "I know it." "Good. That makes this easier. Do you have evidence?" "Extensive digital evidence. Messages, photos, location data, financial records showing unexplained expenses." "Excellent. Washington is a no-fault divorce state, but fault can still impact property division and custody arrangements if you can prove misconduct. How much are we talking about in terms of assets?" I did quick mental math. The house is worth about $800,000. My business is valued at around $2 million. Retirement accounts, savings, vehicles, probably $3.5 million total. And children? 2, 15 and 12. Perfect ages to have opinions about custody arrangements. Are you prepared for this to get ugly, Malcolm? I looked out my office window at the house I'd bought for my family, the yard where my children played, the driveway where Diana parked the car I'd bought her for her birthday. Everything I'd built, everything I'd worked for, everything I'd thought was secure. "It's already ugly, Constance. I'm just deciding how ugly it's going to get." "Then let's meet this afternoon. Bring your evidence and your financial records. And Malcolm?" "Yes?" "Don't do anything dramatic until we talk. Divorce is a chess game, not a boxing match. The winner is whoever thinks the most moves ahead." After I hung up, I sat in my office looking at the evidence I'd compiled. Photos, messages, location data, financial records, everything needed to prove Diana's infidelity and Trevor's betrayal. But evidence was only valuable if you knew how to use it. I opened my laptop and began researching Washington state divorce law, property division statutes, and custody guidelines. If Diana wanted to play games with our marriage, she was going to discover that I'd learned strategy from professionals who played for much higher stakes than suburban relationships. My phone buzzed with a text from Trevor. "Hey man, can we grab lunch today? Need to talk to you about something." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Sure. How about that place downtown at noon?" His response came immediately. "Perfect. Thanks, Malcolm. This means a lot." I wondered what Trevor wanted to discuss. Was he going to confess? Try to gauge my suspicions? Or maybe Diana had told him about our conversation last night and he was coming to negotiate. It didn't matter. Whatever Trevor wanted to talk about, I was ready to listen. And while he was talking, I'd be watching, documenting, and planning my next move. Because Constance was right. Divorce was a chess game. And I'd just realized that while my opponents had been playing checkers, I'd been learning to play chess from masters. Constance Whitmore's law office occupied the top floor of a downtown building with views of the Sound and the mountains beyond. At 62, she had silver hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes that missed nothing. She'd been my father's attorney for the last decade of his life, and I'd watched her navigate complex estate issues with the precision of a surgeon. "You look like hell, Malcolm," she said as I settled into the leather chair across from her mahogany desk. "I feel like hell." "Good. That means you're taking this seriously." She opened the folder I'd brought and began reviewing my documentation. "This is thorough work. Very thorough. Your wife and Mr. Holt were remarkably careless. Or they thought I was too stupid to notice." Constance looked up from the papers, her gray eyes sharp. "Were you? Too stupid to notice?" The question stung because it was fair. "For a while, yes. I trusted them both completely." "Trust is a luxury you can't afford anymore. Tell me about your conversation with your wife last night." I recounted Diana's demand for the right to continue her friendship with Trevor, her refusal to end the affair, and her threat of other arrangements if I couldn't accept the situation. She actually used the phrase, "If you loved me, you'd let me have this friendship?" Those exact words. Constance made a note on her legal pad. Interesting. She's framing infidelity as a relationship enhancement rather than a betrayal. Very modern, very stupid, legally speaking. How so? Because she's essentially admitting to the affair while simultaneously demanding your acceptance of it. That gives us tremendous leverage. Constance pulled out a thick binder and flipped to a marked section. Washington is a community property state, which means marital assets are typically divided equally. However, courts can deviate from equal division when one spouse has committed misconduct that affects the marriage. She showed me a highlighted passage in the legal text. Your wife's affair, combined with her refusal to end it and her ultimatum to you, constitutes misconduct that has directly caused the breakdown of your marriage. That gives us grounds to argue for a disproportionate division of assets in your favor. What kind of disproportionate? With this level of evidence and her documented refusal to work on the marriage, potentially 70-30, maybe even 80-20 if we can prove she used marital funds to support the affair. I thought about Diana's new wardrobe, the expensive dinners she'd claimed were work functions, the hotel visits during lunch breaks. I can prove that. Excellent. Now let's talk about the business. You and Mr. Holt are partners? 50-50 ownership in Farrow Holt Security Solutions. We started it 6 years ago. Is there a partnership agreement? Yes, with a morality clause. Either partner can be forced out for conduct that damages the business reputation. Constance smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. Perfect. An affair between a partner and the other partner's wife would certainly qualify as damaging to business reputation. You could force him to sell his share back to you at a discount. How much of a discount? The agreement would specify, but typically 20 to 30% below market value. On a $2 million business, that could save you $400,000 to $600,000. I felt something cold and satisfying settle in my chest. Diana and Trevor had betrayed me personally and professionally, and now they were going to pay for both. What about custody? With 2 teenagers who can express preferences and a documented history of your wife prioritizing her affair over family responsibilities, full custody is very achievable, especially if she continues the relationship during divorce proceedings. Constance closed the folder and leaned back in her chair. Malcolm, I need to ask you something, and I want a completely honest answer. What do you want from this divorce? I want justice. That's not specific enough. Do you want reconciliation, revenge, financial security, custody of your children, the destruction of your wife and her lover, all of the above? I considered the question seriously. What did I want? I want Diana to understand the full cost of her choices, I said finally. She thinks she can have her affair and keep all the benefits of our marriage, the house, the financial security, the family, the social status. She thinks she can have everything while giving me nothing but humiliation. And I want her to be wrong. I want her to choose between Trevor and everything else, and then I want her to live with that choice." Constance nodded approvingly. "That's achievable, but it requires patience and strategy. Your wife is going to fight this, and she's going to try to make you the villain. She'll claim you're controlling, that you drove her to the affair, that you're destroying the family out of spite. Let her claim whatever she wants. I have evidence. Evidence wins in court, Malcolm, but divorce isn't just a legal process. It's also social and emotional warfare. Your wife will try to turn your friends against you, poison your children's relationship with you, and make you look like the bad guy in this situation. Sophie already knows what's happening. She's on my side." "Good. What about your son?" "Evan's 12. He doesn't understand yet, but he will." "And your mutual friends, business associates, your wife's family?" I thought about our social circle, mostly couples we'd met through the kids' schools or Diana's work. Trevor was part of that group too, which meant the affair was going to become public knowledge eventually. I don't care about our social circle. Most of them are Diana's friends anyway, but I do care about protecting my children and my business. Then here's what we're going to do. Constance pulled out a fresh legal pad and began writing. "First, we're going to secure your assets. I'll draft papers to freeze joint accounts and prevent your wife from making major financial decisions without court approval. Second, we're going to document everything. Every contact between your wife and Mr. Holt, every lie she tells, every time she chooses the affair over family responsibilities." "She's already doing that." "Good. Let her keep doing it. The more evidence we have of her prioritizing the affair over your marriage and children, the stronger our case becomes. Third, we're going to force Mr. Holt out of your business using the morality clause." "When?" "Soon, but not immediately. We want to time it for maximum impact. Fourth, we're going to file for divorce on grounds of adultery and abandonment." "Abandonment?" "She's emotionally abandoned the marriage by refusing to end the affair. That's legally sufficient in Washington." Constance looked up from her notes. "The key to this entire strategy is that we're going to give your wife exactly what she's asking for, the right to choose between you and Trevor. But we're going to make sure she understands that choosing Trevor means losing everything else." I felt a grim satisfaction at the plan. "How long will this take?" 6 months to a year for the divorce to be final, but the real damage will happen much sooner. Once we file papers and freeze assets, your wife is going to realize very quickly what her choices actually cost. And if she tries to reconcile? Constance studied my face carefully. "Is that something you'd consider?" I thought about Diana's ultimatum the night before, her demand that I accept her affair, her complete lack of remorse or accountability. Then I thought about 15 years of marriage, 2 children, and a life we'd built together. "No," I said finally. "She made her choice when she decided Trevor was more important than our family. Now she gets to live with it." "Good. Because successful divorce strategy requires commitment. If you start wavering or second-guessing yourself, your wife will sense weakness and exploit it." Constance handed me a business card with her direct number. "Call me immediately if your wife or Mr. Holt do anything unexpected. Don't make any major decisions without consulting me first." "And Malcolm?" "Yes?" "Document everything. Every conversation, every text message, every interaction. This is war now, and information is ammunition." I left Constance's office feeling like I'd just enlisted in a different kind of military campaign. The enemy was familiar, but the rules of engagement were completely different from anything I'd experienced before. My phone buzzed with a text from Trevor. "Running late for lunch, can we reschedule?" I typed back, "No problem. Everything okay?" "Yeah, just dealing with some personal stuff. Thanks for understanding." Personal stuff. I wondered if Diana had told him about our conversation, or if Trevor was having second thoughts about whatever he'd wanted to discuss. Either way, his cancellation gave me more time to prepare. I drove home through the rain, thinking about Constance's strategy. give Diana exactly what she was asking for, the right to choose between me and Trevor, but make sure she understood the full cost of that choice. The house felt different when I walked in, like a place I was visiting rather than living. Diana's coffee cup still sat in the sink, her jacket still hung by the door, but somehow her presence felt temporary now, like she was already halfway out the door. I went to my office and opened a new document on my computer. Divorce Strategy, Phase 1. Then I began typing a detailed timeline of everything that needed to happen over the next few weeks. Asset protection, evidence gathering, business partnership dissolution, custody documentation, financial analysis. Each item on the list was a step toward giving Diana the choice she'd demanded. She could have Trevor, or she could have everything else. But she couldn't have both. My phone rang, interrupting my planning. Diana's number appeared on the screen. "Hello?" I answered. "Malcolm, we need to talk." Her voice sounded strained, uncertain. "I think we both said things last night that we didn't mean." "I meant everything I said. Please, don't be like this. I know you're hurt, but we can work through this. We just need to find a way to— To what, Diana? To accommodate your affair? To pretend that your relationship with Trevor is just friendship? To accept that you're going to keep betraying our marriage while expecting me to provide for you and support you?" Silence on the other end of the line. "I called Constance Whitmore today," I continued. "Remember her? She handled my father's estate. She's going to handle our divorce." "Malcolm, you're overreacting. We don't need lawyers. We can figure this out ourselves." "We already figured it out. You told me last night that you're going to continue your relationship with Trevor, whether I like it or not. So I'm giving you exactly what you want, the freedom to choose him over our marriage. That's not what I want. I want both. I want our marriage and I want my friendship with Trevor. And I want you to understand that those are mutually exclusive options." I hung up and turned off my phone. Diana had made her choice clear the night before. Now she was going to discover what that choice actually cost. Trevor finally showed up at my office the next morning, looking like he hadn't slept. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his expensive suit wrinkled, and there were dark circles under his eyes that made him look older than his 40 years. "Malcolm, we need to talk," he said, closing the door behind him. I looked up from my computer where I'd been reviewing our partnership agreement, specifically the morality clause that Constance had highlighted. "About what?" Trevor sat down across from my desk and ran his hands through his hair. "About Diana." "What about her?" "She told me you know about our friendship." Friendship. Even now, faced with direct confrontation, Trevor couldn't bring himself to call it what it was. I leaned back in my chair and studied my business partner's face, looking for tells the way I used to read enemy combatants during interrogations. "Is that what you're calling it? Friendship?" "Malcolm, I know how this looks, but it's not what you think. What I think is that you've been having an affair with my wife for months. What I think is that you've been meeting her in hotels, receiving intimate photos from her, and planning a future together while pretending to be my friend and business partner." Trevor's face went pale. How do I know? Because I'm a cybersecurity expert, Trevor. Digital communications leave trails, and you two have been about as subtle as a house fire. I turned my monitor toward him and showed him a folder containing screenshots of his text conversations with Diana, photos she'd sent him, and location data showing their meetings. Trevor stared at the evidence like he was looking at his own execution warrant. "Malcolm, I can explain." "Explain what? Explain how you've been lying to me for months? Explain how you've been using our business as cover for your affair with my wife? Explain how you've sat at my dinner table, played games with my children, and pretended to be my friend while you were planning to steal my family?" Trevor's composure cracked completely. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Diana and we just connected on a deeper level. We tried to fight it, but you decided your connection was more important than my marriage, my family, and our business partnership. It's not like that. We never meant for anyone to get hurt. I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. You never meant for anyone to get hurt? Trevor, you've been systematically destroying my marriage while pretending to be my friend. What did you think was going to happen? Trevor leaned forward, and I saw desperation in his eyes. Malcolm, please. I know I screwed up, but Diana and I, we're in love. Real love. The kind that only happens once in a lifetime. Love. I tasted the word like poison. Is that what you call sneaking around behind my back? Is that what you call lying to my children? Is that what you call betraying 15 years of friendship? You don't understand. Diana hasn't been happy in your marriage for years. She's been empty inside, Malcolm. I've made her feel alive again. The presumption in his statement hit me like a physical blow. You've given her life? Trevor, you've been having an affair with a married woman. You haven't saved her from anything. You've helped her destroy everything good in her life. That's not true. Diana is finally becoming the woman she was meant to be. The woman she was meant to be is apparently someone who abandons her children and betrays her family for a man with a Tesla and a midlife crisis. Trevor's face flushed with anger. You're being cruel, Malcolm. This isn't about material things. This is about connection, about finding someone who truly understands you. Understanding. I pulled up another folder on my computer. Let me show you what I understand, Trevor. I understand that you've been using our business credit card to pay for hotel rooms. I understand that you've been taking personal days to meet with my wife. I understand that you've been discussing our company's financial information with her, probably planning how to cut me out of the business I built. Trevor's eyes widened as he saw the financial records. Malcolm, it's not what? Not embezzlement? Not a breach of our partnership agreement? Not grounds for immediate termination under our morality clause? You can't do this. We're partners. We were partners. Partners don't betray each other. Partners don't steal each other's wives. Partners don't use company resources to fund their affairs. I stood up and walked around the desk, using my height advantage to loom over Trevor's chair. Military intimidation tactics never really leave you, and right now, I wanted Trevor to feel every inch of the power differential between us. Here's what's going to happen, Trevor. You're going to sell me your share of the business at the discounted rate specified in our morality clause. You're going to sign a non-compete agreement, and you're going to be out of this office by the end of the week. You can't force me out over this. I can, and I am. You violated our partnership agreement by using company resources for personal purposes. You violated our morality clause by conducting an affair that damages our business reputation. And you violated our friendship by betraying my trust and destroying my family. Trevor stood up, trying to match my posture, but at 5'8" he couldn't project the same physical authority. Malcolm, be reasonable. We can work this out. Diana and I are willing to be discreet until you've had time to process this. Discreet? The word came out as a snarl. You think I want you to be more careful about your affair with my wife? You think I want to pretend this isn't happening while you two continue to betray me behind my back? I think you want what's best for everyone involved, including your children. The mention of my children sent a surge of rage through me that I had to consciously control. Don't you dare talk about my children. You've helped their mother abandon them for your affair. You've helped destroy the stability and security of their home. You don't get to pretend you care about their welfare. Diana loves those kids. Diana loves the idea of those kids when it's convenient for her, but she's been too busy with her new life to actually parent them. Sophie's been watching her mother transform into a stranger. Evan doesn't understand why his mom is never around anymore, but Diana's found someone who truly understands her, so I guess that makes it all worthwhile. Trevor's face crumpled, and for a moment I saw genuine remorse in his expression. But then he straightened his shoulders, and I saw him shift into negotiation mode. Malcolm, I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. But destroying me professionally isn't going to fix your marriage. Diana's going to leave you whether I'm in the picture or not. You're right. Diana is going to leave me. But she's going to leave me with nothing except you, Trevor. No house, no financial security, no custody of her children, no social standing, no future except whatever you can provide for her. What do you mean? I walked back to my desk and pulled out the papers Constance had prepared. I mean, I filed for divorce yesterday on grounds of adultery and abandonment. I mean, I've frozen our joint assets and filed for emergency custody of our children. I mean, Diana's going to discover that choosing you over our marriage has consequences she didn't anticipate. Trevor stared at the legal documents like they were written in a foreign language. You can't take her children away from her. I'm not taking them away. She's abandoning them for you. I'm just making sure they have a stable home with a parent who puts their welfare above extramarital relationships. Malcolm, this is insane. You're destroying 4 lives out of spite. I'm protecting my children from the chaos their mother has created. I'm protecting my business from a partner who's proven he can't be trusted. And I'm protecting myself from a wife who's decided our marriage is secondary to her affair. I handed Trevor the partnership dissolution papers. Sign these or I'll file a lawsuit that will make your affair with Diana front-page news in the business section. Your choice. Trevor looked at the papers, then at me, then back at the papers. And if I sign? You get a clean exit and a non-disclosure agreement. You can start over somewhere else with Diana, assuming she still wants you when she realizes what her choice has cost her. And if I don't sign? Then I destroy you professionally and personally. I have enough evidence of your misconduct to ruin your reputation in this industry permanently. No one will hire a cybersecurity consultant who can't be trusted with confidential information or personal relationships. Trevor sat in silence for a long moment, weighing his options. Finally, he picked up the pen and signed the papers. I hope you're happy, Malcolm. I'm not happy, Trevor. I'm just making sure that people who betray me understand the cost of that choice. After Trevor left, I sat in my office looking at the signed papers that dissolved our 6-year partnership. The business I'd built with someone I'd considered a friend was now entirely mine, but the victory felt hollow. My phone buzzed with a text from Diana. Trevor told me what you did. We need to talk, now. I typed back, we talked 2 nights ago. You made your choice clear. Now you get to live with it. Malcolm, you're being unreasonable. Come home so we can discuss this like adults. Adults don't have affairs, Diana. Adults don't abandon their families. Adults don't demand that their spouses accept infidelity as a relationship enhancement. I'm not abandoning our family. I'm trying to find a way for everyone to be happy. Everyone except me, you mean? Please come home. The kids need to see us working together. I stared at her message for a long moment, then typed, the kids need to see what happens when people make selfish choices that hurt their families. They're getting a very clear lesson in consequences right now. I turned off my phone and went back to work. Diana wanted to discuss this like adults, but she'd forfeited the right to adult conversation when she'd chosen to pursue her affair instead of working on our marriage. She'd made her choice. Now she was going to discover what that choice actually meant. Diana was waiting in the kitchen when I got home that evening, sitting at the island with a glass of wine and an expression that mixed desperation with calculation. She'd changed out of her work clothes into jeans and a sweater, casual, approachable, the kind of outfit she wore when she wanted to have serious conversations. We need to talk, she said as I walked in. We've talked. You've made your position clear and I've made mine clear. Malcolm, please sit down. Let's try to work this out. I remained standing, keeping the kitchen island between us like a barrier. Work what out, Diana? You told me you're going to continue your affair whether I like it or not. You demanded that I accept your relationship with Trevor as a friendship that enhances our marriage. What exactly is there to work out? I never said I was going to continue the affair. You said you were going to continue your friendship with Trevor regardless of my feelings about it. You said if I loved you, I'd let you have this relationship. You said if I couldn't accept it, we'd need to discuss other arrangements. Diana took a sip of wine, and I could see her trying to reframe the conversation. Those weren't ultimatums, Malcolm. I was trying to explain my emotional needs. Your emotional needs include sending intimate photos to my business partner? Her face flushed. That was a mistake. It happened once, and I regretted it immediately. It happened 17 times over 2 months. I have timestamps. You've been spying on me. I've been monitoring our home network for security threats. Your affair with Trevor qualified as a security threat to our family. Diana stood up and walked around the island, trying to close the physical distance between us. Malcolm, I know I made mistakes. I know I hurt you. But destroying Trevor's career and filing for divorce isn't going to fix our marriage. I'm not trying to fix our marriage, Diana. I'm ending it. You made that choice for me when you decided Trevor was more important than our family. That's not what I decided. I decided that I needed something more than what our marriage was giving me. I thought we could find a way to accommodate that need while preserving what we'd built together. I stared at my wife, trying to understand how someone I'd lived with for 15 years could be so completely delusional about the situation she'd created. Diana, you had an affair. You betrayed our marriage, our family, and our mutual trust. You used marital funds to support your relationship with another man. You lied to our children about where you were going and who you were with. You put our family's financial security at risk by involving my business partner in your affair. What part of that sounds like preserving what we built together? I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen. And when I confronted you about it, instead of ending the affair and working on our marriage, you demanded the right to continue it. You told me I had to accept it or consider other arrangements. Diana's composure started to crack. I was confused, Malcolm. I was scared and emotional, and I said things I didn't mean. Which things didn't you mean? That you're in love with Trevor? That he understands you in ways I don't? That your friendship with him feeds your soul in ways our marriage hasn't in years? Or just the part where you demanded I accept it? All of it. None of it. I don't know. Diana sat back down and put her head in her hands. I'm so confused right now. Everything happened so fast, and now you're talking about divorce and custody and destroying everything we built together. I'm not destroying anything, Diana. You already destroyed it. I'm just making sure the wreckage doesn't take down our children and my business. Our children need both their parents. Our children need parents who put their welfare above extramarital relationships. They need stability and security and adults who model healthy relationships. What they don't need is to watch their mother abandon them for another man, while their father pretends everything is fine. Diana looked up at me with tears in her eyes, and for a moment I saw the woman I'd married, vulnerable, uncertain, human. But then I remembered the photos she'd sent to Trevor, the lies she'd told our children, the ultimatum she'd given me 2 nights ago. What do you want from me, Malcolm? What do I need to do to fix this? You can't fix this, Diana. You made choices that have consequences. Now you get to live with those consequences. But what if I end things with Trevor? What if I commit to working on our marriage? I pulled out my phone and showed her the legal papers I'd photographed. It's too late for that. I filed for divorce yesterday. I've frozen our joint assets. I've dissolved my partnership with Trevor. I've documented your affair and your abandonment of our family responsibilities. Diana stared at the phone screen as if it sealed her fate. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. You told me to consider other arrangements if I couldn't accept your affair. These are the other arrangements. Malcolm, please. Think about what you're doing. Think about Sophie and Evan. Think about 15 years of marriage. I have thought about Sophie and Evan. I've thought about how they've watched their mother become a stranger over the past few months. I've thought about how they've had to wonder why you're never around anymore, why you're always on your phone, why you've stopped caring about their school events and activities. I haven't stopped caring about them. You missed Sophie's parent-teacher conference last month because you were with Trevor. You forgot about Evan's baseball game because you were texting Trevor. You've been physically present but emotionally absent for months because your attention has been focused on your affair. Diana's tears started flowing freely now. I made mistakes, but I love our children. I love our family. You love the idea of our family when it's convenient for you, but you love Trevor more, or you wouldn't have chosen him over us. I didn't choose him over you. I chose to explore a connection that made me feel alive again. At the expense of our marriage, our children's security, and our family's future. That's choosing him over us, Diana. She wiped her eyes, and I saw her shift into bargaining mode. What if we went to counseling? What if we tried to work through this together? You should have suggested counseling before you started your affair, not after you got caught. People make mistakes, Malcolm. Marriage is about forgiveness and working through problems together. Marriage is also about fidelity and trust, and putting your family's welfare above your personal desires. You violated all of those principles when you decided to have an affair with my business partner. Diana stood up and walked to the window, looking out at our backyard where Sophie and Evan used to play when they were younger. So that's it? 15 years of marriage, 2 children, a life we built together, and you're just going to throw it all away? I'm not throwing anything away. You threw it away when you chose Trevor over our family. I'm just making sure you understand what that choice costs. She turned back to face me, and I saw anger replacing the tears in her eyes. You're being vindictive, Malcolm. This isn't about protecting our family. This is about punishing me for not being the perfect wife you wanted. The perfect wife I wanted was one who didn't have affairs with my business partners. Apparently, that was too much to ask. I'm a human being with needs and desires that go beyond being your wife and the mother of your children. I'm allowed to want more from life than domestic servitude. You're allowed to want whatever you want, Diana, but you're not allowed to pursue those wants at the expense of our marriage and children while expecting me to support and enable your choices. So you're going to destroy me financially and take my children away because I fell in love with someone else? I'm going to protect our children from the chaos you've created. I'm going to protect our assets from being used to support your affair. And I'm going to make sure you understand that choosing Trevor over our family means choosing only Trevor. Diana stared at me for a long moment, and I saw her calculating, weighing her options, considering her next move. Finally, she picked up her wine glass and finished it in one swallow. Fine, Malcolm. If that's how you want to play this, we'll play it your way, but don't expect me to make this easy for you. I don't expect anything from you anymore, Diana. You've proven that expectations are just opportunities for disappointment. She walked toward the stairs, then turned back to face me. The children are going to hate you for destroying their family. The children are going to understand that actions have consequences. That's a lesson their mother apparently never learned. After Diana went upstairs, I stood in the kitchen looking at the wine glass she'd left on the counter, the papers scattered across the island, the remnants of a conversation that had ended our marriage as definitively as any legal document could. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophie. "Dad, are you and Mom getting divorced?" I typed back, "Yes. Are you okay?" "I'm okay. Is Mom moving out?" "We're still working out the details." "Good. She made her choice. Now she gets to live with it." The echo of my own words from my 15-year-old daughter hit me like a physical blow. Sophie had been watching this entire situation unfold, and she'd reached the same conclusion I had. Diana had made her choice, and now she had to live with the consequences. I went to my office and opened the file containing all the evidence of Diana's affair: photos, messages, financial records, timeline documentation, everything needed to prove that my wife had chosen Trevor over our family. Tomorrow, Constance would file the papers that would make Diana's choice official. She could have Trevor, or she could have everything else, but she couldn't have both. She'd asked me to choose between accepting her affair and ending our marriage. Now she was going to discover what that choice actually meant. The Pierce County Courthouse sat like a gray monument to failed relationships. its concrete facade weathered by decades of Pacific Northwest rain. I walked up the steps with Constance at my side, carrying a briefcase full of evidence that would legally end my 15-year marriage. "Are you ready for this?" Constance asked as we approached the filing window. "I've been ready since Diana told me I had to accept her affair or consider other arrangements." The clerk processed our paperwork with the bored efficiency of someone who'd seen hundreds of marriages dissolve across her desk. Divorce petition, asset freeze orders, emergency custody motions, business partnership dissolution. The legal framework for dismantling a life I'd spent 15 years building. "Mrs. Farrow will be served at her workplace this afternoon," Constance explained as we walked back to her car. "The asset freeze goes into effect immediately, and the emergency custody hearing is scheduled for next week." "What happens when she realizes she can't access our accounts?" "She'll call you first, then she'll call a lawyer. Then she'll realize that her affair with your business partner has put her in a very difficult legal position." My phone rang as we reached the parking lot. Diana's number appeared on the screen. "That was fast," I said, showing Constance the caller ID. "Answer it, but remember, everything you say can be used in court proceedings." I accepted the call. "Hello, Diana." "Malcolm, what the hell did you do?" Her voice was shaky with rage and panic. "I just tried to use our credit card for lunch, and it was declined. Then I tried to transfer money from our savings account, and the bank told me the account is frozen. I filed for divorce this morning. The court issued an asset freeze to prevent either of us from making major financial decisions without judicial approval. You can't do this. I need access to our money." "You should have thought about that before you decided to use our money to support your affair with Trevor." "I never used our money for hotel rooms, Diana, expensive dinners, new clothes and lingerie, gifts for Trevor. I have receipts for everything." Silence on the other end of the line then. "I want half of everything, Malcolm. Half the house, half the business, half the retirement accounts, everything. You'll get what the court decides you deserve based on your conduct during our marriage." "My conduct? What about your conduct? What about 15 years of emotional neglect? What about your obsession with work and security systems and everything except your wife's emotional needs?" "My emotional neglect didn't involve having an affair with your business partner." "I'm hiring a lawyer, Malcolm, the best divorce attorney in the city. I'm going to fight this." "Good. Fight it. The more you fight, the more evidence of your affair becomes public record. The more public record there is, the worse you look in custody proceedings." "You can't take my children away from me." "I'm not taking them away. You abandoned them for Trevor. I'm just making sure they have a stable home with a parent who puts their welfare first." Diana's voice became shrill. "I never abandoned my children. I've been trying to become a better person, a more complete person, so I could be a better mother." "By having an affair? By lying to them about where you were going and who you were with? By missing their school events and activities because you were too busy with your boyfriend?" "Trevor isn't my boyfriend. He's what, Diana? Your friend? Your intellectual companion? Your soulmate? It doesn't matter what you call him. What matters is that you chose him over our family." "I chose to explore a connection that made me feel alive again. I chose to grow as a person instead of staying trapped in a marriage that was slowly draining the life out of me. And now you get to live with that choice." I hung up and turned off my phone. Constance was watching me with an expression of professional approval. "That went well," she said. "She's angry and desperate, which means she's going to make mistakes. Angry people don't think strategically." "What kind of mistakes?" "She'll try to turn your children against you. She'll make demands that reveal her sense of entitlement. She'll probably escalate her relationship with Trevor now that everything's out in the open. All of those actions will work in our favor." We drove back to my office in comfortable silence. The business that had once been Farrow Holt Security Solutions was now just Farrow Security Solutions, and I had work to do rebuilding what Trevor's betrayal had damaged. But first, I had to go home and face my children. Sophie and Evan were both in the kitchen when I walked in, doing homework at the island while sharing a bag of chips. They looked up when I entered, and I saw too much adult understanding in their young faces. "Dad, Mom called us," Sophie said without preamble. "She's really upset." "I'm sure she is. She said you filed for divorce and froze all your bank accounts so she can't buy groceries or gas or anything." I sat down across from them and tried to figure out how to explain adult legal strategy to teenagers. "The court froze our joint accounts to prevent either of us from making major financial decisions during the divorce proceedings. It's standard procedure." "But Mom can't even buy lunch," Evan said, looking confused and worried. "Mom has her own checking account with money from her job. She also has credit cards that aren't joint accounts. She can buy whatever she needs." Sophie studied my face with the intensity of someone trying to solve a puzzle. "But she can't access the savings account or the investment accounts or any of the big money." "That's right." "Good," Sophie said firmly. "She shouldn't get to use your money to pay for her affair." Evan looked between his sister and me with growing understanding. "Mom's having an affair?" I looked at my 12-year-old son and realized there was no way to protect him from this truth anymore. "Yes, Evan. Mom has been having a relationship with Trevor." "Trevor from your work? The guy with the Tesla?" "Yes." Evan processed this information with the straightforward logic of a child. "That's why she's been acting weird. That's why she's never around anymore." "That's part of it, yes." "And that's why you're getting divorced?" "Yes." Evan nodded like this confirmed something he'd already suspected. "Are we going to live with you or with Mom?" "We're going to court next week to decide that officially, but I'm hoping you'll both live with me." "What if we want to live with you?" Sophie asked. "Then you can tell the judge that. At your ages, the court will consider your preferences." "I want to live with you," Evan said immediately. "Mom's been acting like she doesn't want to be our mom anymore anyway." Sophie reached over and squeezed her brother's hand. "We both want to live with Dad. Mom made her choice when she decided Trevor was more important than our family." The echo of my own words from my children hit me with unexpected force. They'd been watching this situation develop, forming their own conclusions about their mother's choices and their consequences. "I want you both to understand something," I said carefully. "Your mother loves you. She made some very bad decisions about our marriage, but that doesn't mean she doesn't love you. If she loved us, she wouldn't have chosen Trevor over our family," Sophie replied with devastating teenage logic. "People are complicated, Sophie. Sometimes they make choices that hurt the people they love without meaning to." "But she did mean to," Evan said. "She chose to have an affair. She chose to lie to us. She chose to spend time with Trevor instead of coming to my baseball games." I looked at my children and realized they'd already processed their mother's betrayal more completely than Diana had. They understood cause and effect, choices and consequences, in ways that Diana seemed incapable of grasping. "What happens next?" Sophie asked. "Next week we go to court and a judge decides custody arrangements and financial support. In a few months, the divorce will be final and we'll start our new life." "Will Mom be okay?" Evan asked, and I heard genuine concern in his voice despite everything. "Mom will be fine. She'll have Trevor, and she'll have her job, and she'll have whatever the court decides she's entitled to from our marriage." "But she won't have us," Sophie said quietly. "She'll have visitation rights. You'll still see her regularly." "It won't be the same, though." "No, it won't be the same. But sometimes when people make choices that hurt their families, the family has to change to protect itself." That evening, after the kids had gone to bed, I sat in my office reviewing the timeline of events that had brought us to this point. 3 months ago, I'd been a happily married man with a successful business and a secure family. Tonight, I was a single father preparing for a custody battle with a wife who'd chosen another man over our children. Diana had demanded the right to have both her affair and her marriage. She'd framed her infidelity as personal growth and her betrayal as emotional necessity. She'd asked me to accept her relationship with Trevor as a friendship that would enhance rather than destroy our marriage. Instead, she was going to get exactly what she'd chosen: Trevor, and nothing else. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Jennifer Walsh, Diana's attorney. We need to discuss settlement terms before this gets ugly." I typed back, "It's already ugly. Your client made sure of that when she decided to have an affair with my business partner. Any settlement discussions can go through my attorney, Constance Whitmore. Mr. Farrow, I think you'll find that Washington's community property laws are more favorable to my client than you realize. I think you'll find that Washington's adultery and abandonment statutes are more favorable to me than your client realizes. We'll see about that." "Yes, we will." I turned off my phone and went upstairs to check on my children. Sophie was reading in her room, and Evan was already asleep with his baseball glove on his nightstand. Two kids who'd been abandoned by their mother for another man, but who were handling the situation with more maturity than the adults involved. Tomorrow, Diana would start fighting for half of everything she'd helped destroy. She'd demand custody of children she'd emotionally abandoned. She'd claim financial hardship while living with the man she'd chosen over her family. But tonight, my children were safe in the house I'd protected for them, and the woman who'd betrayed us all was discovering that choices have consequences. Diana had said if I loved her, I'd let her have her friendship with Trevor. She'd been wrong about what love required, but she was about to learn what friendship was worth when it was all she had left. The rain continued to fall against the windows of the house that would soon be ours alone, washing away the remnants of a marriage that had ended the moment my wife decided another man was more important than our family. She'd made her choice. Now,